today, sitting
Oh,
outside the pond, and they have like an old Evinrude motor mounted on the wall, which I've never seen
cool.
that kind of thing.
That's great. All right.
Yeah,
Well, we
they're doing
can,
some award ceremony for some of the veteran cycle riders here or something like that.
oh, that's fun. Well, we're live now, so we'll get going. Good morning, everybody. It is Monday. As you can tell, Monday, September 16th. Believe it or not, I can't believe I was just telling the director when we were offline how I can't believe that's already September. It's already September 16th, which means that September is almost like halfway done. So one moment, we gotta just do my halfway done. Do my there we go. I have to get my laptop up and running so that I can see while you're watching, or if there's any questions in the chat for either Director Prince, myself. Happy September, again, September 16th. I have, just for the director here, I have my little, it's not little either, it's a big mug. Hoorah, my little Semper Fi mug, just for the director online here. And then I am wearing my American Legion shirt. So just give a little plug. The Aurora American Legion's been around for 100 years. And what we're going to be talking about today is a little bit of camaraderie, talking about our veterans. And I realized that in the past, some people might not think the American Legion was for you, or that the American Legion was just a bunch of gray hairs sitting around. That is not true. The American Legion today is really quite the sophisticated organization. They are doing a lot for our veterans, and the Aurora American Legion now has a office on Montgomery Road. The hours are sporadic. They have a meeting on the second Friday of every month, starting at 8 a.m. There on Montgomery Road and Waterford. So just giving a little plug for our American Legion. And then just a little bit of announcements. First and foremost, I have to bring this up. I don't know if the director's been in Washington that often, but there is now a World War One memorial in Washington, D.C. Now you'd think, how could it be that there is a World War II and a Vietnam and a Korea and the many other memorials, but there was never a World War One memorial. And this is kind of a fun little tidbit. When Honor Flight Chicago was starting up back in the day, I was able to go with a World War II veteran named Don Futomaski. He has since passed. And if you're not familiar with Honor Flight, as a guardian of Don, I got to push him around on a wheelchair all over Washington, D.C. And we were at the mall looking at the monuments, and Don wanted to see the World War One memorial. And I said, I don't think there is one. Well, DC did their own World War One memorial. It was a little gazebo type thing, and we went all the way off the mall, borderline four-wheeling on this wheelchair to find this memorial for the World War One veterans that Don really, really wanted to see. Well, now, unfortunately, Don and those folks can't see the memorial that just got unveiled. It's an epic 60-foot long bronze monument that is about humans, pretty much. That's what the artist Sabin Howard said. The memorial is about us, we the people. It is a project that resembles the everyday man, the ones who make the country possible. And as he stated during the unveiling, stand in front of you an example of why the country carries so much potential. It is for the freedom to choose what we do with the gift of life. And the country that grants us free will. So it's, again, a massive structure. It took decades to complete. It was done by the generosity of many individuals with regards to this memorial. It's a 25-ton sculpture. It is called A Soldier's Journey, and it is the centerpiece of the National World War One Memorial. So definitely check it out. A little bit of Illinois connection. Jennifer Pritzker donated funds to make this happen, in addition to Carol Mosley Braun, former senator and ambassador. So a little bit of connection there with Illinois, and they fundraised the whole project. So it was a $44 million project. Carol Moseley Braun's grandfather, Thomas Davy, fought in the Black Division of the then segregated U.S. Army. The commission shared her grandfather's draft papers, signed in his own handwriting and preserved for a century. In the bottom of an old box of photographs, she found an image of a young Davy in uniform, and she said was painted in France while he was deployed. So definitely a emotional time for former U.S. Senator and U.S. Ambassador Carol Moseley Braun. In addition to retired Colonel Jennifer Pritzker, she founded the Tawani Foundation and the Pritzker Military Museum and Library that was formerly in Chicago and has since moved across the border. And she was one of the first potential founders of the commission. So Pritzker gave a generous donation that allowed the commission to set up offices and begin fundraising more seriously. She served in the Army, and she has a personal connection to the Great War through her grandfathers on both sides of her family. And she said it was important to remember the conflict even 100 years later because of its ongoing influence in the modern era. So World War I pretty much defined the world as we see it today. So certainly, if you are in Washington, check out the new World War I memorial. It's from the pictures, it looks like an amazing sight to be seen. So other than that, what's going on? Today is Mexican Independence Day. So those of Mexican descent would be celebrating their Independence Day today. Wednesday, September 18th, is a U.S. Air Force birthday. I know. I was in the Marines, director was in the Navy. We still like our Air Force buddies, even though we jab a little bit back and forth. So on Wednesday, we celebrate 77 years of the United States Air Force and thank them for all their service. And then Friday, September 20th, it's the third Friday in September, is National Prisoners of War Missing in Action Recognition Day. We honor those who were previously prisoners of war and those that are still prisoners of war and those that are still missing in our days. So remember that on Friday, and not only on Friday, but every day. And then last week, 9/11, never forget, always remember. The ceremony was in the city of Aurora at the police station. Then Thursday, I attended the 19th annual Aurora Hispanic Pioneers Breakfast. And finally, on Saturday, thank you to the more than 800 people and kids that came out for our Kid Expo and Touch a Truck event. It was a great fun. I always enjoy that event. It really, I mean, director, we should try to get IDVA out to our expo next year to try to hit some of the veterans that are walking around with their kids and their young families, to get them connected to our VA system. And so, and with that, we have Director Prince. He's been on our Facebook page before, and believe it or not, I think it was about this time last year that he was visiting with us via Zoom. Director Prince had joined the Department of Veterans Affairs I have in April of 2021, but good golly, it seems like you've been around a lot longer than that. But it was April of 2021, and leads a team of 1,200 professionals, and they provide services for nearly 600,000 veterans and their families across the state of Illinois. He is a veteran of the U.S. Navy, 31-year career. He retired in 2017 as a Force Master Chief of the Navy Medicine and Director of the Navy Hospital Corpsman. So Marines like corpsmen, so he's one of our guys. Before joining IDVA, he was the superintendent of the Ohio Veterans Home. He and his wife, Dr. Jennifer Prince, and she is a 12-year Navy veteran. They now reside in Will County. So not quite in my area of Will County, but fairly close. So one of the things I want to talk about, I touched on a little bit, is September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And one of the things that veterans lose when they get out of the military, when they come back into civilian life, is that sense of belonging and community and really fitting in. So when we talk about Suicide Prevention Month. We're talking about struggling veterans, which is not the whole veteran population, by the way. Just like in any population, there's a portion that struggles, and there's others that don't. And we want to be there for the veterans that are struggling. So, Director Prince, can you talk a little bit about IDVA and how we are helping veterans who are struggling, and how veterans who aren't struggling can help those that are struggling as well?
Well, absolutely. And thanks for having me on today. It's so good to see you again. And I was smiling about the Air Force birthday because, believe it or not, I wanted to join the Air Force. And I went in on a Friday afternoon to the recruiter's office, and they were closed. The Air Force was gone for the day. And I should have known at that moment that I should have came back on Monday. So I ended up in the Navy at that point. But always honored to be on here with you, Representative Kifowit, and certainly as a Marine and hospital corpsman, I'm very proud of my service with the Marines. And a lot of that gets carried into the job I do now here at IDVA. I have a sailor spirit and a corpsman's heart. And part of the hospital corpsman pledge is to, really give oneself to your patients and take care. And the bottom end ends with I dedicate my heart, mind, and strength to the work before me. And that's what we do at IDVA. This is Suicide Prevention Month, and every day in our organization is really an effort to prevent veteran suicide. There are far too many veterans dying by suicide across our country. The number that's often given, as you're very well aware of, is 22 a day, but we're pretty sure that it's much higher than that. So we don't often know about some of the other behaviors or whether or not the death was classified as a suicide. With all that being said, our goal is to reduce that down to zero. We struggle with this, as do most agencies, because veterans, as you mentioned, they come out, and not every veteran is broken. Not every veteran needs services, and we don't always know when that veteran's going to need something or have that moment that maybe changes their direction, which is really my idea of why IDVA exists. We want to make sure that we are there for people no matter when they need us. Even when they don't need us, they have a North Star that they can look to and say, okay, I have a concern, a question, a comment, something, and can IDVA help? You mentioned the American Legion, certainly the Big Six, the VFWs, et cetera, et cetera. They are our partners in this effort because no one agency can do it all. And suicide prevention is a community effort. It has to be all hands on deck at all times. And I think you'll agree with us, having served in the Marines, and you were in Okinawa, Japan. So when you came back from Oki, you came back to, Okinawa, Japan is a lot different than the US. I remember when I first came back from Oki and I said to my friends, like, when did everybody get blue hair? When did these things, we weren't locking our doors in Japan. There are no weapons in Japan, no firearms in Japan, things of that nature. But what I'm saying, and that you came back and I came back, is you left a pretty cohesive team, right? You spent your Fridays together, your weekends going to the beach or whatever. Then you come back to Aurora and Blue and Peoria and places like that, where everybody appreciates veterans, but it isn't that same. So you don't have your team anymore, and that to me is the biggest thing that we have to continue to work on in our state and across the country, is really keeping veterans and their families connected to that team.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, believe it or not, I was in Okinawa 30 years ago. Time just flies by, and you still have great memories of that, and such a rich culture. But I do want to say, when I got home, the military pretty much just gave me an airplane ticket and said, "See you later." And it was a really funny story. I've told this story before. I was in California for 3 years. I was in Okinawa for 8 years, both tropical warm climates. And then I discharged in January and took a flight back to Chicago. I did not have a coat. I did not have any warm winter gear because I didn't need it for 4 years. And I remember calling my grandmother, who lived right there on Pulaski, 56th and Pulaski, to pick me up at Midway and to bring me a coat. Now, my grandmother was all of 5'3". So you can imagine how her coat fit me when she brought the only coat that she had that looked like upholstery from a really bad couch back in the day. You can imagine that kind of fashion sense. So nowadays, though, aside from like transition taps that they have, which I hear is like a whole week long of PowerPoints, the military now is more embracing a more cohesive transition, I think, back home than when I got out, when they just gave me an airplane ticket and away you go. Yeah, and I do remember back then I did get a letter from IDVA. I didn't quite pay much attention to it because I was getting a lot of mail and trying to figure out how to go to college and how to find a place and all that other stuff. So it was very traumatic. So what is IDVA doing nowadays to try and really connect with the veterans when they get back here into the States?
Yeah, that's your experience is pretty equal to a lot of folks that I talk to, even in this day and age. And DoD is committed to ensuring that veterans transition, their service members transition into their communities at the top levels. But oftentimes we'll see at the troop level, depending on where you are, we've got programs like Skill Bridge, we've got TAPS program, and other things. It really is dependent on the leaders to allow these folks to participate in these opportunities. I think you might find it interesting, and the viewers would find it interesting, that the TAPS class, there's actually a couple different versions of it. There's the version that you went through, which hasn't really changed that much. It is basically a week's worth of PowerPoints and jamming a bunch of information into the minds of, an average age of 22-year-old, just want to get out and get home. And then there's another version that's like exec TAPS. It's called ETAPS. And it's typically attended by higher ranking people, O6s and above, senior enlisted E9s and so on and so forth. And you'll find many times, Representative, that those folks will take that class a year before they retire, and then they'll take it they'll take it a few weeks before they retire again. And then other services, depending on the position that you're in, you can actually stay on active duty after your retirement. I remember seeing a sergeant major in the Army, and about 3 months after his retirement, in uniform. And I said, "Didn't I go to your retirement?" He goes, "Oh, yeah. They let me stay in for 6 more months to transition." You and I were in the sea services, and it's often said in the sea services, there's 1,000 jobs for 100 people. And, there's always something, and you're literally working up till the day of. I can imagine you working, and we were in Okie at about the same time, albeit we didn't know each other, really working up to almost the day. And then they're like, "Okay, here's your ticket. Have a good life." So at IDVA, we recognize that. And it's challenging, right? Because we don't know who's coming back to Illinois in many cases until they've purchased a home, or the one that we use the most has gotten a driver's license with the word veteran on it. One of the, the dizzying array of incredible benefits that Illinois offers to veterans and their families. And so we're working with DoD and some other programs, and, where we're helping programs where people can find jobs in Illinois, through the Department of Labor and other efforts, and also working on legislation with the National Association of State Directors, and to get specific things on the DD 214 that allow the veteran to they have to opt out of where they're going to go to. Historically, veterans could just check, "Do not send my DD 214 to my state." Now they have to specifically opt out of that choice so that we can understand who's coming back to the state, so we can reach out to them, not just with a letter. Because it's funny, people don't really read their mail anymore. Even when you get birthday cards, you're often looking for the gift card, right? Instead of reading the letter from grandma. We want to be able to get to them on places where they're seeing TikTok, Facebook, social media, these things where, we know that we have about 30 seconds. And we're talking about suicide prevention, and I'll summarize it with this. The longer we wait, the more challenging it is. We have programs in place to make sure that we're preventing these things. But as you're well aware of, and many of your constituents call when things go wrong, right? They don't often call and say, "Hi, Representative, just wanted to say hello." It's often, "Hey, I really need help with something, and I've tried this, this, and this, and this, and now I've reached a point where I need you to help." Suicide prevention is not much different than that. obviously much more severe, but it's, have we opened the doors? The challenge to IDVA employees by me is knock the barriers down. The barriers being those to entry that often make it difficult. Like, oh, if you call, we might answer the phone. We answer the phone. When you call our number, and a man named Russ served in the U.S. Army Airborne HUA, he's going to give you a motivated HUA, and he's going to make sure that he triages your call and gets you to the right person. And all the way up and down the chain of command is really how we address it at IDVA. And so we have multiple programs that do that and help veterans, not just in suicide prevention, but through our veterans homes, through our state educational programs, through our veteran service offices, through our grants program, our records department, and so on and so forth. So a very, very robust program to serve Illinois veterans and their families.
No, very exciting. And as you said, Illinois has a plethora of benefits and laws aimed at our veterans. I've talked about them in the past, anywhere from trying to protect them from claim sharks and individuals, claiming that they can do things that the state does for free. Our Veterans Assistance Commissions on the county level do for free, in addition to just getting that veteran on your driver's license. And I believe you can get free or discounted license plates, free or discounted hunting licenses, and the plethora of things that Illinois does. In addition to that, a funny story when I got out is this adds to the stress, is that I wanted to go to college, and I didn't realize, because as you said, being in Okinawa and in California, I didn't realize that when I got out, the application for colleges had passed. So when I applied to the state colleges, because we still have the Illinois Department of Veterans, or the IDVA, we have our Vets Grant for Illinois Veterans Grant for schooling, and we also have post 9/11 and all these other grants for our veterans for schooling. But I got denied to all the state schools except for one school that waived the requirement. That was my alma mater, Northern Illinois University. So that's another thing that we're working on, is making college more accessible to our veterans. And then you mentioned as well, we have Skills Bridge, and then we also have Helmets to Hard Hats that gets our veterans into gainful employment right after they get out of the military, because their employment, really, employers want to hire veterans overall, and they have a great time. So do you want to talk a little bit about the benefits that Illinois provides to our veterans? If you're a veteran coming back to the state of Illinois, which we appreciate that, there's a lot of things here for our veterans. I heard from Major General, retired Major General now, Neely, that Illinois and Texas are the two most friendly veteran states that he knows. And I think Illinois should be pretty proud about that.
Yeah, there's so many benefits out there, and oftentimes those benefits can be, and first off, congratulations. I mean, your alma mater pulled the upset of the year by beating Notre Dame the other day. So that had to be pretty awesome at the Representative Kiffelwood household, I'm sure. And a lot of times those benefits can be very, very challenging to access because there's so much. And you mentioned something I want to go back to, if I can, for a second, is we often think of veterans as like students, right? Like they did their service and now they're going to come home and immediately go to school. When in reality, veterans are being paid, and the average salary of a veteran departing the military is $50,000, $60,000 some $1,000s. Many of them have children and families already. And so the idea that every veteran is going to go to school right away, or they're going to do this right away, is really kind of, you and I have talked about this, is we make a lot of assumptions. And your point about getting a job right away, that's the biggest thing we see. Can a veteran and a person really get back into employment right away? They've been used to getting a paycheck twice a month for whether it's 4 years or 31 years without fail. They've gotten a paycheck. And all of a sudden they're staring down a calendar that says, I don't have a paycheck. What am I going to do for money? And am I going to be able to land suitable employment, not just employment, but suitable employment? That's why Illinois is so amazing with the LIUNAs and the AFL-CIO and these incredible unions that allow, and AFSCME here in the veterans homes and around our state that allow, and I apologize for the noise for your listeners and viewers. I'm at the Mantino Veterans Home and the ducks are going crazy at the pond over here. And really it kind of starts from the moment that we know that they're coming, and that is, welcoming them to Illinois. And here's the beginning of the benefits. So if you're looking for job placement, working with the, the different departments of our state, IDVA has to be the communicator, the joiner of services of our state. And that includes a non-state agency that you and I are very well aware of, as we're both board members, and that's Illinois Joining Forces. Ensuring that there's no closed door. Everything that a veteran can get to, IJF can assist. You mentioned some of the bills that you've been a big part of, and I'm so proud to work with you on these things, including the Claim Sharks Act. Getting veterans enrolled into VA healthcare and making sure that they're getting the benefits that are associated with whatever disabilities they incurred while they were in the military is huge. I think you would agree, Representative, that many of our veterans, and you've talked to them, they're like, well, I don't really deserve it. Give it to somebody else, right? Somebody that's more deserving. And oftentimes we remind them that we don't know what those injuries are. We don't know what those wounds are. And getting them into that care is a way for them to be their healthy best. So it really starts with that, getting them a position, finding jobs that work for veterans and helping them, getting them the health care that they need, letting them know that if they have a mortgage and they have disabilities, that their property taxes can be reduced or even eliminated depending on the level. That's such an incredible benefit that allows for the development of what they like to call generational wealth, right? Where you can start to save money and actually have a paid off house. And which is kind of a foreign concept to many people. Like, wait, my house could be paid for. Imagine that you're in your 50s and you have a paid for house. And then one that we really don't talk about a lot is our educational benefit. And you mentioned it by going to NIU, and thank goodness that NIU was open-minded enough at the time to say, hey, you served in the military, we'll waive that. And our universities do a really good job working with veterans. Almost every state and university has a veteran support organization as part of their campus. I've worked with many of them and been proud to see their efforts. But the massive amount of education, including free education for veterans who attend state school, I mean, you can't put a price tag on that for the long-term development of and couple that with the incredible Montgomery, or I'm sorry, not the Montgomery, but the new GI, the post 9/11 GI Bill. It is a really massive incentive for a person to get their education completed right here in Illinois. And I was so happy that you mentioned General Neely. I did connect him with the director for the state that he lives in. So he is actually being exposed to other states and what they provide. And for him to say that Illinois is one of the top 2 in veteran benefits, if you know General Neely, which you know General Neely, he doesn't just say things just to say things. When he says something, he absolutely means it. So I think that Illinois is an incredible place. It's why my wife and I decided to move here, for veterans to not only live, but thrive on the number of benefits that we offer for our service.
Oh, absolutely. And it's been conveyed to me that our property tax credits for disabled veterans has really helped reduce homeless veterans, allowing them to stay in their homes. And we just passed a law to help waive fees for medically necessary improvements to homes. So if they need to install a ramp or so we are continually trying to be there to support our veterans and be really 100% there. As I have said in the past, every single veteran bill has passed unanimously, bipartisan. There's no games being played when we talk about veteran benefits and veteran legislation that can help our veterans. So in the state of Illinois, we are 100% veteran friendly. And you touched on that. There are different avenues of assistance for veterans. One thing that I didn't know when I got out, I think a lot of veterans don't know, as you mentioned, when you go from the military and you get discharged, honorably discharged to the lake, you actually do qualify for unemployment benefits. And I don't think a lot of veterans understand that the government is here to help you transition, and you had a reduction in force, which qualifies you for some unemployment benefits on top of the other benefits you can get from the VA when you're transitioning. So that's a nugget that I know a lot of veterans don't realize, and it is a benefit for your service and to help with that transition. Now, one of the things, as you know, you're with the VSOs. IDVA has VSOs, and I believe there's going to be an office opening up in around Aurora, a state Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs VSO connection right there in our close to our hometown right here.
Yeah, we're excited about the expansion of some of our VSO offices, including Aurora, which is just an incredible community. I remember coming to Aurora, believe it or not, with my parents years ago. Certainly even before Wayne's World was a thing, and really put Aurora on the map in the movie sense. You mentioned veteran service officers in general. Veteran service officers are often the gateway into these benefits, specifically the ones that really come from the VA. Now, the cool thing about Illinois is that not only do we have veteran service officers employed by the state, professionals, and for your listeners out there, if you didn't pick up on what Representative Kifowitz said about claim sharks, there are people out there, parasites in many cases, who will literally take much of your benefit and charge you a fee to do it. Where the reality is that you don't have to pay for those services. And just because you pay for those services doesn't make it any faster. And in fact, you often lose money in the process. There's a horror story about a person who got a $400,000 grant or $400,000 worth of back pay from the VA, and almost half of that went to the claim shark operator. And so we encourage veterans to reach out to their veteran service officer. And it's available on our website, the map and locator, veterans.illinois.gov. And also at our phone number, which is available on our website, where we can direct you to that specific veteran service officer who can assist you with not only the benefits, but also they're almost kind of like mini directors. Stephanie, when I say that, I mean, when the reality is like each of them work in a community. I'm here at Manteno today, for example, and there's a veteran service officer at Manteno that veterans can come to. And that VSO is not only an expert on VA healthcare and getting enrolled in the benefits, but also kind of all the local things that are going on here. If there's a problem with housing or there's a problem with employment, they're often the experts in the community that they serve. And so we're proud to say that Aurora is going to be opening soon and having someone there. But we also work, and what I meant by one of the best things about Illinois is that we work with county veterans assistance commissions. Nearly every county in Illinois has what's called a VAC. And the Veterans Assistance Commissions provide resources, even financial and guidance and assistance to veterans and their families in the counties that they serve. I've got the privilege of speaking at their event this week, Thursday, their state training event in Peoria. They also have veteran service officers working on behalf of veterans and their families. And so Illinois has made it a priority to ensure that veterans are connected to their benefits. And as you were saying, and your listeners need to be paying, there's so many of them. It's almost like navigating the stock market as a newbie. You want to have a professional in your corner. I often say to veterans, like, you have a barber? I, as you can imagine, don't have a barber, but many of them do. Do you have a financial manager? Do you have a therapist? And the answer is, yeah, I have all those things. Well, you need to have a VSO in your corner as well as part of your team to ensure your success and your family's success moving forward. So the VSOs are the gateway to IDVA and to all of those benefits that we were talking about.
And there's a lot of benefits. Like you mentioned, I was just texting with an individual about like nonprofits that can connect veterans who are also first responders, because we have a lot of first responders that are veterans, to benefits such as financial assistance. And the reality is, if somebody is facing like the inability to pay a couple months of their housing expenses. The VAC can help with that. There's food insecurity. The Veterans Assistance Commissions can help with that. So there's and as you said, the Veteran Assistance Commissions and the VSO has a list of all the benefits that Illinois provides for veterans. I will I know you're gonna shrug a little bit because it's taken me 30 years, but I did just finally enroll in VA healthcare and get services through the VA. I've gone to Hines now. I've had a couple appointments at Hines, and it's a very great establishment that we have for our veterans, and the doctors have been always great. So not only do the Veterans Assistance Commissions help me connect with Hines and do all my paperwork, but in addition to that, they gave me forms for even forms for if I want to ride the bus in Chicago for free, I could do that. So a whole stack of forms that I could fill out to get benefits based on my veteran status in the state of Illinois. So not only they're just a wealth of information, and I do have to say that our VACs for Kane and DuPage County, in addition to Hines VA, are at the Aurora American Legion office that second Friday of every month from about 9 o'clock to 1 or 2. So walk-ins are always welcome, and so they actually will come to the area and we'll travel and we'll get all the information you can get. Now, pedaling a little bit with September Suicide Awareness Month, we have the military crisis line, and I know for veterans that are not within like a VA within easy to get to Hines, they do ship out like iPads that are equipped for telehealth. So there's a lot of things that veterans can do if they are struggling. Or to be quite honest, I was talking to some folks that man the crisis line, and they say that some veterans call because they're lonely, which is fine. Okay. If you're lonely, and loneliness, isolation is a precursor to folks getting depressed and then ultimately going down a path that we don't want them to go down. So there's a lot of not just the crisis line, but there's a lot of things that folks can do with regards to suicide prevention, and a lot of veterans like me that want to help those that are struggling as well. So we talk a little bit about Illinois has the governor's challenge, and then there's also other efforts going on in the communities, peer-to-peer counseling and the like, that we can help out our struggling fellow veterans.
Yeah, this is a real world example that I just had this week. Literally came back from seeing some of my Navy friends just for the last several days. Oh my goodness, the birds are going crazy over there. And two of them told me that they were very, very depressed, and one of them indicated that they were suicidal at one point. I'm not going to give names, obviously, but these were senior enlisted people who I've been friends with for years. And I said the following: why don't you call me? Give me a chance. Give me an opportunity. Give me 30 seconds of your time. These are the struggles that so even people who have families and they're, on the surface are very successful, and you would think they don't have any issues whatsoever, are often ones that are struggling just as much as the ones you would think. We use cliches and we pigeonhole people like, well, that person was in combat, so they must be suicidal, or that, when we really don't have any idea why a person, and you nailed it. Isolation and loneliness are some of the biggest things that we struggle with, which is where the American Legion and the VFW, these posts are created, to provide a place of camaraderie, a place where veterans can go and see people that look like them, talk like them, dress like them, different events around the state. So IDVA, working with the Governor's Challenge, and you've played a big influence on me in this job, and that was backed up. Your thought about having events around the state for veterans was backed up by a study that IDVA commissioned with a nationally renowned suicide prevention. Her name's Dr. Springer, Doc Springer, given that nickname from the Marines, believe it or not, that she's worked with out in California. who came up with the same um, hypothesis, which was you need to have more events, more mentorship of veterans in our state. And so the struggle we have is that we have a lot of events. I mean, you mentioned DuPage County. My wife just gave a speech at their event last week on suicide prevention for Superintendent Fixler and the team there, and getting the word out to veterans about these different events. In Kankakee, Eric, oh my goodness, I want to say Smith, but I'm going to be wrong. Uh, Project Headspace and Timing um, does events here with cars and weightlifting competitions and picnics, and then sets up the tent on the outside. And what he's found is that we know this, that the veteran might not go in and get all the materials, but the family does, right? They want to know more about what's going on. They want to see what's happening, or they've seen something in their veteran and they say, I need help with this. And they go, I can imagine even for you after all of these years, finally going back to the VA, all you hear about is what's shown on TV, the VA this, the VA that. And what you find is it's a very incredible experience with people who do truly care about your well-being. So part of the biggest thing we do at IDVA is make that connection and make sure that people understand all the events that are going on out there, so that we can get veterans into the community and keep them from sitting in their houses alone. I come to the veterans homes not just to see the staff and see how things are going, but to literally sit and talk with veterans about how they're doing. And that's where the community really has a part to play, is how are you doing? Are you a part of our community? Are you integrated with our community? Statistics have shown that veterans, for example, who go into jail, they've been in contact with police and fire dozens of times before that actually happens. So we're working with our first responders, you mentioned earlier, to recognize that and take them into things like Veterans Treatment Court and notifying other services in the community that veteran so-and-so is having some trouble with this particular whatever it might be. And then earlier you mentioned homelessness and tax, and that's another area. Are we checking on veterans? I love the "Be the One" slogan. Do we? When I was the senior enlisted leader, and try to do it now with our staff, is I would say every sailor every day. And people were like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I want to look into the eyes of or talk to every one of the people in my charge every single day, so that I know that they're okay." And I didn't, with my friends that I just saw, I didn't have that opportunity, and I would have never known, and they would have never said, and I can't imagine. And so that something horrible might actually happen with people who I thought had it all together. And it doesn't take much to change. That's why the 988 is so important. And you mentioned just calling to talk to somebody. Illinois Joining Forces is another great opportunity to call if you need assistance. And veterans are often too proud, right? They don't want to check it off. You and I were in the Marines and Navy. And I'm going to say it out there. Many people aren't going to check I'm having mental problems on whatever form they're filling out, because two reasons. You don't want to lose your promotion or your opportunity to transfer to a duty station, or in this case, you don't want to lose your weapons. And many veterans are very, very tied to their weapons, right? It's a culture. That's what we've grown up on. And so by getting help at the VA and other places, the laws are different. They don't just take your weapon away right away. But I would encourage people listening, since we're in Suicide Prevention Month and we know for a fact that lethality on weapons is the number one thing that people use, is to ensure that you've got your weapons locked up, that you put something in place. And Dr. Springer, again, mentioned this in her report to IDVA, was one of the examples she gave was veterans that have an ammo can, and they put the lock to their weapon at the bottom of the ammo can. And in the ammo can, they have letters from their loved one. They have teddy bears. They have things that mean something to them, baseball cards, whatever it might be. And you have to actually go through all of that before you can get to the key. And that 1 minute of just pause is often enough to stop the tragedy from happening. It's not a solution in the large fact. It's not the ultimate solution, Getting therapy and getting care is ultimately what will help in that case, but it is a way to delay that process from happening. And you know this as well as I do. Last year, Secretary McDonough for the VA, they changed the rules and allowed anybody who was in a mental health crisis or having a problem to go to a VA medical center and get care. And or, as you mentioned, sending it out into the community or giving you an iPad and a way to commute, to telecommute or teleconnect with healthcare. And so we just need veterans to say, okay, I'm willing to take this, if not for me, then for my family. 135 people are impacted by every suicide. That's the number that I've seen. That's the number that Dr. Prince, the person I'm related to by marriage, uses as a statistic. She's a suicide prevention specialist. And so 135 people are impacted negatively by a suicide. Imagine if we gave those 135 people a chance to solve the problem, we'd be in a much better place.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point because when folks talk about completion of suicide, somebody taking their own life, that we mostly talk about that individual and we don't talk about the ripple effect that happens. And that impacts family. In fact, tenfold, to be quite honest. My it's no secret, my daughter is now married to an Army guy. And when he was in training a couple of years ago, they had a fellow person there take their life. And it turned out that that person's father had also taken their life. So it does have this ripple effect in impacting children and impacting family beyond recognition. It's so devastating to that family network. So what we try to talk about and what you try to talk about using your analogy with Dr. Springer is to pause, because it is an impulse. It is an impulse that cannot be reversed, and to have that pause in there. And one of the things that I have found in talking to my son that's in the Navy, again, overseas, he's in Japan. He's been in Japan now for 3 years. He's 2.5 years. He's been in the Navy, believe it or not, since 2020. He was the graduating class of 2020, and I got to see him graduate on this medium right here, Facebook. And when I talk to him, when I Zoom with him, which I think is a wonderful thing now, I don't say, "How are you doing?" because he will always say, "Fine." I would say, "What kind of stress are you feeling these days? What can be better? You know, are you getting out more?" You have to not just call your buddy and be like, "How you doing?" And those are gonna say fine. You have to probe and you have to ask open-ended questions, like are you just staying in your room? And he's like, I am staying in my room a little bit more. I want to try and get out, and I feel that I'm not quite as motivated. And then you can have a discussion. And it's not it really isn't intruding if you ask more poignant question than "How are you doing?" Fine. Like, I went to the VA, and I thought it was kind of interesting that they're like, "Are you suicidal today?" And I'm like, "No, not." But that's not a probing question. That's just a yes or no, check the box. So I think friends and family have to do a wellness check in on our folks that are homebound, can't get out, extreme pain, sometimes, and just try to talk things through in a non-threatening, very open-minded way that, again, provides that camaraderie that I think everybody needs. So it's the pause, whether it's Dr. Springer's lockbox or it's just a gun lock. I have weapons. Everybody in the military has weapons. Responsible gun owners, lock them up. Make sure you know where they're at all times. Make sure they're unloaded. And in fact, my daughter was just talking about this the other day. She didn't even realize it was our gun cabinet because we had it in the way back of a closet facing the opposite way. So you couldn't open it because the door was facing the back closet wall. And in some essence, with all the clothes in there, you didn't even know it was in there. So you had to have a big effort to get into the where they were stored. And that's what it's supposed to be. It should be, responsible gun owners make sure that any and all firearms are properly locked up and away from children and not easily accessible, unloaded, and completely secure. And that's something that families and friends can do as well. That if you have firearms and just make sure they're locked up. Insist on them being, and gun locks are everywhere. You can get them for free from VSOs, from VACs, from the VA, all over the place. You can get gun locks to make sure that they're properly secure. Or, as Dr. Springer said, just remove the firing pin. It's easy to put back in if you want to go to the range, but just remove the firing pin, and that disables the firearm as well. So small things can make huge issues manageable, and people that are dealing with a huge issue, but on the outside, and we've seen this. Robin Williams, Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain. We have seen highly successful, amazing people end their lives, and you just wish they could have reached out, or somebody could reach out to them. So with that, anything to wrap up, Director Prince? We've had a great discussion. It's been a wonderful touching on a subject that not everybody wants to talk about, but you got to have the discussion. You got to keep talking about it. In fact, when my kids were younger, they would make jokes about death and dying, and I would sit down and I'd be very serious. I'm like, are you thinking about it? Every time I talk to my son who's in the Navy, I'm like, if you're thinking about it, I want you to call. I said, if you're thinking about it, I want you to stop and pause and call me. You have to have that discussion. You can't assume that they're going to call. You always have to put it in again, repetitive. Every time I see my son, I used to say when he was in Virginia, I'm only an hour and a half flight away. I can be by your side. Now I have to tell him I'm about a 19-hour flight away. However, if he needs me, I'll be there. Also, I do have to say, Director Prince, that my son's Facebook page for his ship is very responsive. So if you're a parent and your child is deployed or overseas, really you can really connect through Facebook with members of, in this case, the command of my son's ship, and they can also do buddy checks and stuff to that effect as well. So, but you gotta always say it. You always have to say it. And hey, don't be thinking about taking your life today because I need you around tomorrow. You got to be a little bit blunt when we're talking about veterans, I think.
Yeah, that's such a great, I think people respond to that, right? And I close this weekend, Saturday, I'm speaking at, and you've been there as well, and that's the Forgotten Warriors Memorial in Shanahan. And sadly, they're inscribing, I want to say at least 6, if not more, names onto the monument there for those veterans that died by suicide. And so I think that's the best way to say it is you got to be bold. You got to ask those questions that, they're probing versus, are you okay? I remember an appointment real quick when the person said, hey, are you suicidal? I said, no, but I've been really depressed. And there was no follow-on question. Like, can you answer? Aren't you supposed to ask me further questions? We often put the onus on the person. So again, families that are listening, friends that are listening, if you have a suspicion, it's okay to ask. I think you heard Stephanie say that about her own son. If you have thoughts about dying, please tell me about it, because that's a pause. All we need is a pause, and then we go on with our lives. We're exposed to so much negativity all the time that the world often seems like a horrible place, and the reality is there's so many wonderful people who want to help, who want to be there, to want to make sure that you live your best possible life. And suicide is a very personal thing. It's very, as you said, it's a spur of the moment thing, or it's never going to get better, and that's just not true. And I would say this in closing: give me a chance, not just because I was a hospital corpsman or because I was in the Navy or I'm the director, but because I truly care about you as a veteran. And I truly want you to thrive in Illinois. And I'm so glad you gave me a chance to come on. It's great to see you as always.
Oh, thank you. It's really great. And again, don't be afraid to say it. If you're thinking about taking your life, don't do it. Let me know. And in regular conversation too, not in a big, huge, like serious way. Just always, and I tell my son that all the time. If you think about taking your life, guess what? You better call me first, or your mother will never forgive you. That's what I tell him. Whether it's right or wrong, I say, if you take your life, I will never forgive you. And he's like, Mom, I'm fine, I'm just a little down. I'm fine. I'm going to call you if anything. So, but you got to give people that pause. And I want to just say that, Roger Trent, Army guy, is watching, and Elizabeth said that 135 people affected is a great visual that she didn't hear before. So definitely that's a huge plus. So we really appreciate you coming on. I'm just going to give like a quick 5-minute rundown of some of the bills that are going to that into effect August 9th. And then again, thank you, Director Prince, for being with us today. So those of you that might have jaw injuries due to accidents or illness receive full coverage for necessary treatment. So August 9th, the governor signed into law a new law mandating insurance companies in the state of Illinois cover treatments such as oral and facial surgeries, dental implants, and prosthetics. Again, this falls under the category of laws we wish we didn't have to pass in the state of Illinois to allow people that have jaw injuries to get it covered under insurance. It's sad but definitely we want people to be able to eat and be able to talk and be able to use their jaw without pain and to get the proper treatment that they deserve. It passed unanimously in the House and Senate, and certainly we don't want people to face financial ruin when they're just trying to get the care that they needed. So one of the studies that came out, the end of cash bail, it hasn't resulted in any more crime. A little bit of an impact in our court system, but it's been 1 year since Illinois outlawed cash bail. And so far, according to all the studies, is that there would be a rise in crime, which did not happen. So, in fact, violent crime and property crimes are down. And so just wanted to state that what we are finding is that, that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, and making sure that justice is served, but certainly in a more fair and equitable way. The state of Illinois is investing money to find the homeless population jobs. And it's a 2.5-year pilot program to help unhoused individuals find jobs, as we mentioned, not only in the veteran sphere, but also overall, making sure that people have a job, that they can afford housing in some way or form is really important. So we are working at hardworking people that are facing the homelessness, ways to lift them up and get them back into work. It's called the Home Illinois Workforce Pilot Program. And so we are partnering with organizations to provide job training and support services to help people overcome barriers to employment. We are looking at rapid rehousing, job readiness, adult education, and the planning phase right now, it's going to take about 6 months to put together, and then hopefully followed in an 18-month implementation plan. This is open to everybody, veterans included, but certainly that is the way to start driving down homelessness and getting people employed. Finally, Illinois DMVs are accepting contactless payment, and digital IDs are coming down the road. So last week, I remember way back in the day, Director probably does too, when you could only use cash or check at the Secretary of State office. That's it. And if you didn't have that, you're out of luck. Well, not only do they accept Visa cards now, you can use Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung Pay at all 150 driver services facilities. So definitely going into the 21st century, tap to pay cards that don't require signatures are also being equipped. And then we passed the law. The Secretary of State is looking right now for vendors for the digital ID program. So like many individuals in their 20s, I know, they don't carry their driver's license with them. They don't carry anything with them but their phone. So now we're getting into a digital age with regards to driver's license. So other than that, We are putting some money into electric vehicle charging station infrastructure, $25 million in grants to build these out because I see more and more and more electric cars on the road. Now, nobody is forcing you to give up your gas car. I still have a gas car. Nobody's forcing you to give up your gas car. However, if you choose to get an electric vehicle, there's going to be more charging stations around in the area. And then finally, we're going to end on a couple of positive notes. Governor Pritzker named Colonel Lenny Williams as commander of the Illinois Army National Guard, Assistant Adjutant General. So congratulations, Colonel Lenny Williams will be the next Assistant Adjutant General, Army of the Illinois National Guard. As I said before, we have an Army and an Air Force blended National Guard. So he is of the Army National Guard and commander of the Illinois Army National Guard. With this appointment, Colonel Williams will be promoted to Brigadier General and serve as one of two deputies under Major General Rodney Boyd, who lives right here in our area. Wonderful person. Colonel Williams served in the Illinois National Guard since 1991, which actually I joined the Marines in 89. So we're about the same generation of military. Starting as an enlisted soldier, rising through the ranks, he was Chief of Staff of the Illinois Army National Guard from May 2020 to May 2024. And he's had many multiple command positions. He holds numerous military awards and decorations, including the Combat Action Badge and Bronze Star Medal. He has a master's degree in strategic studies from the U.S. Army War College and a bachelor's degree of Southern Illinois University. I know, Director, you've met Lenny a couple of times. He seems like a really great person. And now he's going to be helping out our good friend, Major General Boyd in the area. And then finally, I don't know what you're watching on TV, but I do appreciate The Bear. Congratulations on winning a whole bunch of awards. Great show. I just finished it, and I was just like, good show, good stuff. Based primarily here in the Chicago area, and congratulations to all those. With that, thank you again, Illinois Director of Veterans Affairs, Terry Prince, and everybody for tuning in this Monday. Have a great week ahead. Again, POW MIA Remembrance Day is this Friday. Please remember those that never made it home in any way, shape, or form. And I know that Gold Star family, Robert Patterson and his wife Mary, do a great job recognizing that they lost their son tragically in service, and they were able to bring him home and put him to rest. And many families don't even have that their loved one never made it home in times of war, and they still don't know where they're at. And so I really appreciate the efforts and the service. Rolling Thunder Chapter 1 had brought 4 POW MIA remembrance resolutions to the House. We're going to work to try and pass those in the Senate in the fall veto session, and because we can never forget our POW MIAs. So with that, have a wonderful day. Enjoy the weather, and Director Prince will enjoy the Mancino home and all the geese that are apparently swirling around him. So thank you all. Have a great day, and have a good rest of the week.